The hole in the air on top of Ruapehu. Look at this nonsense in the Auckland Star. Grandad pointed at the photo of smoke rising from Mount Ruapehu. Why is it nonsense? Because it says here that Ruapehu's a volcano. Thought it was. Everybody else thinks it's a volcano, but your grandmother knows better. If it's not a volcano, how come it's smoking? It's a long story. Did I ever tell you about the time your grandmother got it into her head that she wanted to climb Mount Ruapehu? Did you ride your tandem down there again? Told you your grandmother gave her that old tandem to the Sallies. No, she got out the old penny farthing she rode when she was a girl in Victorian times. A penny farthing? It's one of those bikes with a huge front wheel and a tiny wheel behind. Where do you sit? Away up on top of the front wheel. Could somebody double someone? There wasn't any room in front, so I had to bolt a shelf above the little wheel at the back to stand on. Why didn't Granny make you do all the peddling? That would have meant me sitting higher, looking down on her. She made me stand on the back and hang on around her waist. Very embarrassing for a man. Your grandmother wondered why people shouted and shook their fists at her. She didn't know I was pulling faces and poking my tongue out at everyone as we passed. We got as far as Taupo, and I had to dip the billy in the lake, boil up and make your grandmother a cup of tea. There was no desert road in those days, just a track winding through tea tree and tussock to the foot of the mountain. Your grandmother said there was a road down the other side of Ruapehu, so I boiled the billy and made her another cup of tea. She tied the penny farthing on my back and we started climbing. By the lake on top of the mountain we ate the last of our sandwiches. Your grandmother wanted another cup of tea. She scratched away the snow and found some black rocks. Cold, she said, and used up all of our matches getting a fire going. I melted snow in the billy, and your grandmother had her cup of tea. Then we got back on the penny farthing. Was there another road down the other side? Grandad shook his head. Jump on, your grandmother shouted. I'll make my own road. She steered straight down the other side of Mount Ruapehu, shot through Oakuni, and headed towards Wanganui. She pedalled faster and faster, and I looked behind and saw why she was in such a hurry. That coal she'd lit to boil the billy had set fire to the top of the mountain. You see, the whole of Ruapehu's made of coal. Your grandmother doesn't want anyone to know she's the vandal who set fire to it, said Grandad. You'd better not remind her. What happened to the penny farthing? We got back to Auckland and your grandmother hid it under the house. Years later she gave it to the school to raffle for their gala day, and the Rawleys man won it. For years I saw him riding it with his suitcase of samples tied onto the handlebars. Then he bought a Model T, and I don't know what became of the old penny farthing. And that's why Ruapehu sends up smoke? Grandad nodded. You know what a one your grandmother is for her cup of tea. Grandad says you set fire to the top of Ruapehu, I told Granny that afternoon. Oh, yes. Granny pressed her lips together in a straight line. And tell me, how did I come to light a fire on top of the mountain? Grandad said the whole mountain's made of coal, and you lit it to boil the billy because you wanted a cup of tea, and it's still burning. I told that man, said Granny. Told him to put out the fire before we left, but you know him, he was staring off into space instead of paying attention. He said you biked down there from Auckland on a penny farthing, I said. The one you had when you were a girl in Victorian times. Granny's lips pressed even tighter. Do they go fast, penny farthings? I pedalled so fast, sparks flew from the wheels, and the peat swamps near Hamilton caught on fire and burned for 50 years, till a wet summer put them out. Where we crossed the Waikato River, we were going so fast the heat of our tyres scorched it so dry it ran empty for 2 days. We shot up Mount Ruapehu, down the other side, and around Lake Taupo 3 times before we could stop and boil the billy for a cup of tea. It must have been going some speed. So fast we broke the sound barrier and left a hole in the air on top of Ruapehu, said my grandmother. You can tell where the hole is because your ears ring when you walk through it. Oh, I wish I could ride that fast. Granny nodded. Penny farthings were too fast for people like your grandfather. Think I told you he never learnt to ride without falling off, so they made bicycles with both wheels the same size. Much safer, but not as much fun. Wish I had your old penny farthing. What happened to it? Your grandfather was so jealous, he sold it to the Rawleys men. He told me you gave it to the school to raffle for their gala day. Thought I told you, said Granny. never to trust a word your grandfather says.